Eldon, a licensed veterinarian and chief medical officer at Dutch.
Welcome to the Dutch live stream. This is our second time we're doing it, so it's for real. It's happening every Thursday morning. We'll be talking, answering all your questions. The thing about this week's episode is that next week, Dutch is turning 5 years old. That's 35 in dog years, although probably more, right? Wouldn't you say? What would you say 5 years is in dog years, Dr.
It's
Kate?
not, we usually
Not
do that kind
linear.
of yeah, it's not linear. It's more of like an exponential type curve. So as you get older, the years, the years shift a little bit. So maybe closer to 40.
Okay. So for those who are tuning in for the first time, Dutch, we're an online veterinary care platform. Dr. Kate is our chief medical officer. Do you want to give a quick background to those tuning in for the first time?
Yes. So welcome to our live stream. My name is Dr. Kate Eldon, chief medical officer at Dutch. And I started out as a veterinarian thinking I was going to work with horses for the rest of my life, and then switched into small animal and started doing telemedicine during COVID. And I think I just got addicted to it. when I look back on it, I realized that helping people virtually is just it. As a veterinarian, it's really rewarding to realize that most pet parents, we can answer a lot of their questions pretty quickly. And that just felt so rewarding to me. And I saw some scenarios for me that were aha moments when actually telemedicine I thought was better for the pets than having them come in person for things like anxiety. Lots of cats that were peeing around the house. I had these super rewarding experiences doing telemedicine, and I think I never looked back after that. So I found my way to Dutch. I couldn't be happier here. And I think, Joe, one thing that you said to me early on when I joined Dutch that has just kind of like always stayed with me was I asked a question about, how should we handle this situation? I think it was it was something about prescribing. And your response to me was, Dr. Kate, what's best for the pets? You should do that. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm in the right place.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think, so one of the things we wanted to talk about on this episode is VCPR, the vet client patient relationship. The VCPR is what establishes that relationship. It is something that is ultimately determined by the veterinarian. And like you mentioned at Dutch, our goal has always been to serve pets. I started this company because so many pets were getting no care whatsoever. And I knew building HIMS, the human telemedicine business, that so many more people would get access to care for the first time with a service like this, with a service like Dutch. And I definitely want to harp on this point because at Dutch, I know that just the fact that someone gets to talk to a professional is going to go such a long way. In fact, by the way, I was just talking to an insurance platform yesterday, and they were telling me one of the most, I'm not going to name names, but they were saying one of the most expensive cases they ever had, and this is expensive and it didn't go well, was something where they had to pay $150,000 out of pocket. And what happened is the patient had an issue. They went to Dr. Google and they gave their dog ivermectin. And that put the dog in the hospital, and eventually the dog passed away. And I say this because if that animal, if that pet parent had a chance to have a Dutch telemedicine appointment, I'm almost positive it wouldn't have ended up this way. And, and so I think that's why we're here. We don't have an incentive to do anything other than put the pet first. And so, I think I kind of want to harp on this point of how our veterinarians truly have latitude to do what they feel is best. I mean, I think hearing stories about the things you've treated and the pets you've had that you've treated on this platform continue to show that we don't really have a preference for how that happens. In fact, the other thing, by the way, that I think a lot of people don't know or maybe don't understand is the veterinarians at Dutch, they are paid simply to do their job. They're not given production pay, which is the industry term for paying veterinarians to sell more stuff, sell more products. They're not incentivized to do that. They're simply paid on a per visit basis. And we did that so that there's no gamesmanship, there's no reason for them to do anything other than see patients.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing that up, Joe, because that's something that, I love veterinarians, and I love being a vet. I love the veterinary industry, but there are some call outs where I feel like we are broken. We're not doing things in a way that I think is helpful for or sustainable for vets. And I think production pay is one of those that's worth like calling out for us veterinarians, like inside of the industry, to question, is this healthy? In some ways it's good. It's not all bad, but in a lot of ways it's not good. And that's something I'm proud of that we do at Dutch, is like the vets are paid for the animals that they help, not on, they're not selling anything. And you brought this up earlier. It's a lot of the pets that I see, because yesterday I was seeing pets on the platform, seeing appointments like all of our vets, and a lot of them, like, I am their first interaction with a veterinarian. They've never seen a vet before. And so this moment that they're talking to a vet, like, they cherish it. They've got these questions. It goes back to why I think it was like I got addicted to telemedicine, is they've got these questions that they've been waiting to ask pet parents. And it's just, like the ivermectin example, if they could have talked to a vet and the vet said, actually, like, you shouldn't do this, you should give this instead, or maybe gave them a specific directed dose. So it's a special thing. And there were reports that show over half of pets in the US don't get any veterinary care, right? So, so it's rewarding to be able to help these people.
I would say, just to stick to that point, I think so many people either don't believe that there are so many pets getting no care at all. It's, even for me in this, doing what we do, it's still hard to fathom, and by the way, bringing it back to our 5th year anniversary of Dutch, when I started Dutch, that's what we saw right away, that so many people were coming to us for the first time. And as we've grown, that has pretty much stayed the same. About 50% are saying they're getting care for the first time. And it's just hard to even grapple, because partially why we believe in a virtual VCPR, why we believe that there should be, we should trust the vet and we should create telemedicine for pets to get care virtually, is this point that there's just so many pets getting no care.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think when you talk to people, if they're coming from a traditional brick and mortar background of veterinary care, my take, and I'd love to hear what you think, because I'm always the pet parent here, not the medical professional. But I
Yeah,
think there's a
you should
group.
call that out. Sometimes I have to tell Joe, hey, Joe, you're talking like a pet parent.
That's
Let
right.
me give you
That's
the
right.
experience. Yeah.
But I think there's a group of people who, they just don't believe that to be true at all. What do you say to that?
Yeah, and I mean, I say this in the most endearing way because, like, I lived it too. I worked in private practices, corporate owned and independently owned, and we all are kind of in our own bubbles in our practices, and we see the pets that are coming in the door, but you don't see the pets that you don't see when you're doing that, and doing telemedicine, I see those pets every day. And just yesterday, it was 6 cases. I was just going through them in my head where I ask the clients, and I tell them, hey, the best thing for you to do would be to take your pet into a clinic so that a veterinarian can put their hands on them and do some diagnostic tests. And then I say, hey, and this is a shame-free zone here. Is that something you're actually going to be able to do? And I think that there's people want that. They want to know that they're not going to be judged. And as soon as I say that, it's like you can see them, like they take a breath, and they're like, I just can't do that. This one mom, they had found a kitten, and I could see her 2 kids in the background, and they found this, like, it's about a 3-month-old kitten, we think. And it's having some issues. And I asked her that question, can you take them in? That would really be the best thing to do. And she's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And then one of my other cases yesterday was the owner was actually in a wheelchair. And so asking them to get their big dog, like that, they're not going to be able to bring that pet into the clinic. And so being able to meet people where they're at in kind of a judgment-free way, I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think telemedicine is perfect, right? But it's progress, and it's getting these people care when they otherwise wouldn't be. I mean, the world that I vision, and I'm just going to keep saying this because I'm going to manifest it, is I want every pet to have an in-person vet and an online vet, so that they can do lots of check-ins, especially senior care. Like, I love old dogs, but just all the people listening that don't know, I love old senior dogs. And there's so many times where just like a consult or looking through the home, actually getting to see inside of their natural habitat and their home environment can be really helpful. And Joe, you brought up VCPR, which, I mean, maybe not everybody knows what that means. It means the veterinary client-patient relationship. That is a really important, it's like a sacred relationship with the veterinarian and the pet parent. And hopefully the pet is like a mutual consensual part of the relationship as well. I find that through telemedicine, pets are much happier to see me. Sometimes in the clinic, the pets are not so happy in the VCPR. But our veterinarians, like, they're licensed in each state where the pet is. So, we know the local kind of what's going on in the local environment, the local conditions, the local, like if you have Lyme disease in your area, your vets are going to know about that. And they're going to recommend specific preventatives and, are going to analyze your case based on where they are. And that's part of that relationship.
One of the questions we just got says, can Dutch be my main veterinarian? So kind of in this world, you're suggesting, especially when someone the beauty of Dutch is that our membership covers up to 5 pets. And so you have unlimited visits, and someone who has 5 cats, they may want to talk to Dutch a lot more often. One thing we found in our 2026 pet care gap report is that 42% consider Dutch to be their primary care veterinarian. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that absolutely, like, especially for pet parents that have a lot of questions, your vet on the Dutch platform is going to tell you when you need to go in for diagnostics. If you need lab work, actually, there's a lot of diagnostics that we can ship through telemedicine too. So I just want to call that out because I've had veterinarians ask me, how do you diagnose intestinal parasites or a UTI? I'm like, well, we ship a collection kit, and the pet parent puts the poop in the kit and they send it off, and then it gets analyzed at the lab. So we can do a lot of these routine preventative diagnostics at home, but blood work's not there yet. Maybe one day, like there's a COVID test that you can do at home. We'll be able to do some of this blood testing at home and actually like make it more affordable. If somebody wants to go out and build that, who has the means, and build us an at-home test for things like liver and kidney values or heartworm, we would love that. This is my ask if anybody's in that space. But our vets are going to tell you when you need to go in person, and then you can ask all of these questions that, instead of going online to ChatGPT, ask your Dutch vet. The platform works kind of like texting. So you can message with the vet. I say the user experience for the vets, and I think for pet parents, is like an iPhone experience. Like, it's very intuitive. So you get on there and you can send your vet a message. If it's something that requires a video visit, we do that. But if it's a quick question, we just send you a text back, and it's within hours.
And actually, on that note, someone asked, do I have to buy my meds through Dutch, or can I send to a local pharmacy like Chewy?
Yeah. And I think the call out here is that anytime you see a veterinarian, whether it's through Dutch or whether it's an in-person clinic, like, you have the right to get your meds wherever you want. So those are rules for vets. Like, we don't say you have to get your meds anywhere, regardless of where it is. So pet parents should feel they've got that autonomy. And I would say, so one thing that is pretty cool about what we're doing is the vets are directly connected to the prescription, just like in an in-person clinic. So if your vet prescribes a med, then right away it can get shipped, like kind of ASAP. Just like if you were in a clinic and you wanted to walk out with your medication, like, your med's getting shipped as soon as your vet at Dutch prescribes it. There isn't like a waiting period like it would be for a Chewy or 1-800 Pet Meds, where they've got to go and get authorization from the vet. Sometimes that's what takes a while, and maybe your vet's not in the office, and then that authorization takes time before it gets to you. So you don't have to know. Things can be transferred to a local pharmacy. But the rate, the speed, if you're going for speed and quickness, and we price match. So I get that question a lot from pet parents, because they want to know, hey, is it like, do things cost more? I'm like, I don't actually know all the prices on things. That's above my pay grade. But if you do find a lower price, you can absolutely let our team know, and we will price match that.
Another question, since we're on a roll, is how do you palpate the abdomen, check the mouth and ears, get a pulse, temperature, or blood work? And I will say, as the voice of pet owners, I don't think I knew what the word palpate meant until I started Dutch. So this is I don't know if it's a customer or not, or a
Maybe it's
a
a
vet
vet or a
asking this
technician.
question. It's
Yeah.
a pretty and actually, I would add to that, then, as the pet parent, do you all, like, back to like online care, can you do telemedicine without, like, is this 100% requirement to palpate abdomen, check the mouth, ears, get a temperature, or blood work? Like, is that, because I think what's behind this question is, can you even do online veterinary care, or is it just impossible, because you always have to put your hands on the animal in order to do anything? That's how I see this question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like this is a bit of a technical question, and I love it. Because when I first started on doing telemedicine, I was skeptical too. I had been working in clinics. And so it was a new territory for me. And then, actually I realized, because I started as a horse vet, I think, in most of our calls going to go to a farm, like, they start as a telemedicine call and having the owner describe what's going on, because so much of what we do is in the history. But after doing some telemedicine, I realized that, oh my gosh, this idea that I had in my mind, that you have to, you have to put your hands on the pet every time. No, and most pet parents don't want that. No, I don't think you necessarily have to. Of course, for senior pets, getting a veterinarian to be able to palpate the abdomen, that would be great. It would be great if every senior pet got a physical exam 1 or 2 times a year in person. But I think the reality here is that pet parents can't always do that. And so even if, and I feel like this is a gift, if I can teach them how to, and palpate, for those that don't know, palpate means to put your hands on and kind of like feel and massage and feel the internal organs of the pet, or actually just to feel the surface of the skin for lumps or bumps. We can teach pet parents how to do that at home, and actually like teaching them that skill of how to do that at home. It's just like teaching a woman how to do a breast exam on themselves so that they can do their own kind of preventative care. Pet parents are experts in their pets. Like they see them every single day. And I think we're looking at a different pet parent today than we were 10 or 20 years ago. Like our pet parents are empowered. They can get a lot of information online. They want to know how to do some of these things. And that's what we do through telemedicine is I'll tell pet parents how to feel the abdomen. Honestly, some days in a clinic, like with an aggressive dog or a really anxious dog, there's no way I'm getting to do any palpation, right? But a pet parent could. And if I can walk them through what normal feels like, then they can be the ones that are saying, hey, this is different than what I felt before. So we teach pet parents how to do that. We can teach them how to get a pulse and how to check a resting respiratory rate, which is something even in the clinic we teach pet parents how to do, because you don't get a natural resting rate in a veterinary clinic, like period. The pets are anxious, they're panting. And so we always want to know what is their respiratory rate when they're resting, because that's actually an important indicator, not just for lung health, but for heart health. The ears is a good question. And I explain to pet parents, like, the ear canal is an L shape, and, you can see the outside of it, just this top of the L, but inside there's a lot of it that we cannot see. And I talk pet parents through that, that, we can't see all the way in there. And I talk them through, hey, I think annual blood work is really important, and we meet them where they're at.
Mm-hmm. So for those joining right now, we're talking to Dr. Kate. She's the Chief Medical Officer for Dutch, an online veterinary medical platform. And we're talking about how do we do online care? How do we connect the virtual veterinarian with the pet parent and the pet at home? And we're talking about ears. And another question when it comes to ears is a question from Christopher, who says, can you help with an ear infection with antibiotics?
Yeah. So I see a lot of pet parents at Dutch with their pets have allergies, especially right now. It's like one of the allergy seasons, and a lot of pets that have allergies also get ear infections. And so when it comes to ear infections, most people, they say antibiotics and they're thinking oral antibiotics. They want to give a pill to fix whatever's going on. But actually topical antibiotics are usually what we prescribe for dogs with ear infections. And absolutely, we can prescribe topical antibiotics for dogs with ear infections. What we can do is we can actually send pet parents a test kit and teach them how to do a cytology, which is where they use kind of a Q-tip to swab the inside of the ear. And then they ship that to the lab. And then we look, we get a readout of what type of bacteria or yeast are in the ear, and we can target our antibiotics or antifungal to that. We also spend a lot of time explaining to pet parents and thinking about like what's the underlying cause of the ear infection, because the antibiotics are just like one piece to the puzzle. We just don't want that ear infection coming back. So we try to talk about what do you do in between those ear infections, how to kind of prevent them. Yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yes, you did a
Okay,
great
good.
job.
Cool.
So on this episode, we're talking about the 5-year anniversary of Dutch. And when Dutch first started, we really only focused on 2 conditions, anxiety and dermatology. We have now expanded. We have over 150 conditions that we treat through our platform, and it runs the gamut of not just those 2, but like ear infections, what we're talking about, digestive issues, diarrhea. So many pet parents are coming to Dutch nights and weekends when the vet office is closed. And so we're there for them pretty much 24/7 around the clock. On this episode, we have a special promo, Anxiety 50. For those who don't know how to spell anxiety, which sometimes could be me, it's ANXIETY 50. Anxiety 50 is our special code to try us out. You say $50. And to dive into anxiety, how do you diagnose anxiety? In our 2026 Pet Care Gap Report, we were making a point that actually anxiety could be better solved through online care because it takes so many visits and the pet gets to stay home. But I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Kate, and all your brick and mortar and online vet care experience, and talk about treating anxiety patients.
Yeah, and I mean on the platform, I saw 3 pets yesterday. They were looking to get anti-anxiety meds in preparation for 4th of July. So it's definitely something that's on people's mind right now. Um,
And
so
what, by the way,
before,
maybe to dive into that, since that's around the corner next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, what's going on? What's the dog or cat thinking when it's 4th of July and we're celebrating, and how would anxiety meds help them during that time?
yeah, this is a great question because we can help people get prepared with their pets at home. I'll just pretend that I'm reliving one of my calls yesterday because their medications are important, but they're just one piece to the puzzle. So if you were to
That's so
put your,
important, by the way. Again,
yeah,
that it's all, it's behavioral training modification, it's the environment. Yeah, it's so many things. And by the way, it's like, oh, I love that again, you're the professional who knows what she's talking about to really help put together a whole package for how to address this. I love it.
oh, thank you. And I like just helping people and giving them information. So I love this that we're doing this. And yeah, I mean, okay, so to walk us through a visit, I'll talk with owners about, okay, is their dog microchipped? And, is their information up to date? Because we see more pets getting lost around fireworks season than any other time. So make sure your dog's got a collar, if they've got a microchip, like all that stuff's up to date. And then take a look at your home. If there is like a sanctuary space that you can set up for your pet where they can go and retreat to and make that comfortable, do that in preparation for fireworks, and set up some sound machines or turn on the TV, whatever you can do to create some noise to distract from the fireworks. Because Joe, you asked this. I think if we were to put ourselves inside the brain of a dog or cat and just like pretend that we're them, when fireworks are going off, like for all they know, it's the end of the world. Armageddon is coming and it's so scary. And you see pets act that way, like they don't know what's going on. So if we can kind of blur out that noise, that's so helpful. I had one of my pets yesterday. The owner was like, "My dog loves to go in the bathtub. Is that okay?" And I'm like, "Totally, that's totally fine." If you
I
can
love
go
it.
and sit with them, then that's great. There are pheromone sprays that you could put there, and diffusers that you could put there to help, create like a calming pheromone environment. And if you can be with them, great. And even if it's not like every time, just kind of working up to being with them in that comfortable space so they know that's their sanctuary. Anti-anxiety meds definitely help. Trazodone is one of the most commonly prescribed medications that we'll use for anxiety. And we practice that at home, like before the moment of truth. And we want to make sure that the dose is appropriate, and that they're tolerating it well. And so those are some of the things that we talk through, creating a safe space. And then also around this time, I think about heat, making sure pets are like they have a place to go in the shade, that they're not just outside unattended. And then foods like barbecue, table scraps, foods from people visiting. In the summertime, it's like not our, I have kids too, so like our routines are all thrown off and there's different snacks and things around. So you're barbecuing, watch out for those things.
One of the questions from Drew, he says, what do you think of over-the-counter anti-anxiety oil scented plug-in things? Are they safe for cats? Do they work?
So I like there are some specific products that have calming pheromones. So that like an essential oil type plug-in, I think this is what Drew is meaning. I haven't had experience that shows me that those work. And I haven't seen literature that shows that like an over-the-counter one works. But there are specific products like a Feel Away or an Adaptil that have actual pheromones in there, and those can be super helpful. They come as sprays, and they can come as a plug-in as well. There are also some like calming chews that can be really helpful, that are not a prescription product, but more of a daily supplement, and things that you would give before a moment of anxiety.
And what about like Thunder Shirt?
Thunder shirts can be helpful. And I think about when it comes to behavior, and behavior is a great telemedicine use case. Right now in the vet world, there's the buzzword of fear-free, right? And being fear-free certified. And doing telemedicine, I've worked with several hospitals that were fear-free certified, meaning the experience for that pet in the hospital, it has a reduction of fear. And they want telemedicine because telemedicine is inherently fear-free, right? Like telemedicine is the essence of fear-free. Yeah, and so we'll use a combination of tools like the Thunder Shirt, like the pheromone sprays. Oftentimes, and you brought this up, I'm so proud, environmental modification. For cats, like the worst thing that you could do is like move a couch sometimes, and there's changing their environment can be really stressful. And also, if you have multiple cats in a household, sometimes like one cat just sitting in a hallway can be a sign of aggression, and you would never know that unless you were watching them in their home and getting to see the environment. And so the environment and like where things are in the house makes a big difference. And they're all kind of pieces to the puzzle, and we're better off doing things together than just like one Thunder Shirt or and not doing anything else, or if we're just giving a medication and not doing anything else. So behavior, like helping a pet with anxiety, works best when you're looking at all of these things, making sure the pet's healthy and not in pain. Working on the environment, sometimes you need a medication, an anti-anxiety medication, if you're going to be able to bring this like baseline nervousness down so that they can learn new things. But the learning is just as important as the medication in that moment. So all the things together.
And all the things that you can talk to your veterinarian at Dutch about, and Feliway and Thundershirt are in our pharmacy store. But I think the whole package, like you mentioned, it's definitely the beauty of talking to a Dutch veterinarian. Another question from David. He said, how do you calm a senior dog with sundowners without medicating them?
Yeah. Oh, so sweet. While we're talking about products, another thing that we have that I love for senior dogs is Composure, or Calm and Confident. Like I like that supplement for these senior dogs that are having the kind of sundowners. So being with them and keeping routines is really important for senior dogs. So just companionship. And so, okay, let's see. I would ask some specific questions for David about what are the specific things that they're seeing in their dog, because for some dogs, they're circling, right? They've got a pattern of like circling or pacing. And so if you can change their routine of where they're going to do that and get them in a new place or distract them, maybe feed them in a new spot and just kind of shift that repetitive behavior in a different area can be really helpful. Let me see. I guess I want to know specifically what else this dog is doing so that I can help.
So we're talking about anxiety. We are here with Dr. Kate, the Dutch online veterinary care chief medical officer. And we're talking about anxiety because that's how Dutch started. What are some of the things that people get wrong, pet parents get wrong when it comes to anxiety? What are some of the assumptions that are made that you would say you have to correct?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is just that this is the way my dog is and that they can't modify or change. It's true that a lot of socialization happens in this, like the first 3 or 4 months of life. And then learning can be continuous. And so the people often assume that once they have an adult dog and they have a behavior, that's it, that's who they are, that's their personality. But really there is a lot that we can do to relieve anxiety, to get them comfortable in new situations. So that would be one myth that I would bust is like, that your dog is the way that they is and they cannot change. Let me think
Cool.
about others. Mm-hmm.
So we're getting more audience questions. We're here every Thursday morning answering questions from pet parents. Another one that came in: what is the best thing for a dog with a yeast infection? She won't stop itching herself. She's currently on a steroid pill and ointment we drop in her ear. Any other suggestions?
Okay, so this dog has a yeast infection. The first thing I'd want to know is where the yeast infection is, because dogs can get yeast infections like localized. They can get them kind of all over their skin.
What is the yeast infection?
Yeah, so malassezia infection would be an overgrowth of yeast on the skin. So dogs and people, like we have normal flora that we live with on the outside of our skin all the time. And inside of our ears, and this is the same for pets too. Like you're gonna have a normal amount of bacteria and yeast on your skin. But what happens with dogs, and we're seeing this more and more with dogs today, probably because we're diagnosing it better, but also because of the breeding that we're doing of dogs. We're seeing dogs that have allergies or a skin barrier that makes them more susceptible to allergies to things in their environment and food and things that they're eating. So with a dog that doesn't have as good of a skin barrier is going to be more susceptible to overgrowth of the normal things that are on their skin. And so you can have an overgrowth of yeast on the skin. And usually that happens when maybe a dog's been itching or their skin barrier is irritated, and then you get the overgrowth. Or dogs with allergies, just the cracks and crevices that they have in their skin, there's more of them, and so they're more susceptible to this. So the goal of treating an infection with yeast is treating the underlying cause always. Like, why did they get that? Did they get that because they were scratching? Well, then we've got to make sure they're on a parasite preventative. They've got to be on a prescription flea and tick medication. If the allergies was the underlying cause, then we want to figure out, okay, was that environmental allergies, and is there a component of a food allergy? And the answer to that's so boring. Like, you just have to go through the tests. You have to rule the things out. You've got to relieve the itch. There are medications that can do that, JAK inhibitors. We've got a few of them now. Like, the good thing is now, we have Apoquel, we've got Zenrelia, we've got Numelvi that just became available. There's also injectables like Cytopoint that can help with that. So we have tools now that can help relieve itch. And then if there's infections, you've got to treat those too. Antifungals, topicals are great when it comes to anything on the skin or in the ears because you get a really high concentration of a topical. But I talk through this with people all the time. They're like, oh, I have to bathe my dog. I'm like, I know, especially with a big dog. It's always harder when they're big. But actually removing the allergens and removing the bacteria and yeast can be so super helpful. You can have a shampoo lather and let it sit. If it's a prescription shampoo, letting it sit for 10 or 15 minutes. And then rinsing with cool water, you're getting a super high concentration of an antibiotic or antifungal. And then there's mousses you can put on and leave, way easier than a shampoo, especially for a big dog. So that's how I would treat inside and out. Yeah.
We carry what's the brand that we carry that does that?
Which one? I know you're about to stumble over one of the brands. We have Duxo, which is,
yes, that's the one.
Yeah, that's one of the most popular products and they do make a great range of prescription. And people forget that we treat the topicals, the shampoos and mousses just like a prescription antibiotic. Like, we're going to say we want you to use that 3 days a week and we wanted to use it specifically. And I think pet parents forget, like, oh, it's a shampoo, I can get that from the store versus an oral antibiotic. Like, they don't think about it the same, but I'm like, this is just as important as an oral antibiotic. You gotta follow it because we want to hit certain concentrations. But they have a prescription, antibiotic, antifungal shampoo, and then they've also got maintenance ones that are just going to help keep the skin healthy. And that's stuff to use in between the bad infections. Like, for a dog, like the one that we were just talking about with yeast, like, once the infection's cleared, allergies are never something that you cure once and for all. It's something that you manage well. And so in between the infections, still using a really high quality shampoo to help the skin barrier is a great idea. Remove allergens, things like that. There's topicals that can help with itch before a bad infection sets in.
So we only have a few more minutes left, and we'll take any last questions. I do want us to address New World screwworm, which is, such a big issue today. So, Dr. Kate, I would love your input on the latest with that issue.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Joe, we got to talk about screwworm because it's so important. Okay, so screwworm it's not a worm, it's a fly that part of its life cycle, what it does is it hones in on any kind of exposed flesh. That could actually even be just like in the nose or at the middle of the eye, or even just like a bug bite, a tick bite or something like that. And the fly hones in, lays a bunch of eggs anywhere in tissues, and then the eggs become larvae and they feed on healthy living tissue. It can infect pets, dogs and cats. It can infect people. I know this is so gross. I hope I don't gross everybody out. But it can also affect livestock. And that's what most people are hearing about is that, it is a big issue for our food supply and for transport of cattle and food animals across borders. So that's an important thing for pet parents to know about, is especially in the border states like Texas and New Mexico. If your pet is on a isoxazoline class, and I'm going to name these out for you, like a NexGard or NexGard Plus or Credelio Quattro or Simparica Trio, they're not going to get screwworm because those medications prevent against screwworm. But it is it is very real. And those meds that prevent and treat screwworm, in order for your veterinarian to be able to prescribe those, you do need a VCPR. And so that means that you need to be able to establish that relationship. In some parts of the country, we can do that virtually, but not in all. And so I really want to be able to help all of those pets in those states. And so I think that we should really make this accessible for all of those pets.
Yep. I always find it crazy because in life, there are I think, rare opportunities where there is such a clear answer. Because I think most things in life, and maybe connecting it back to Dutch and being an entrepreneur, are very unclear and you don't know where you end up. But in this case, we know that if you are on a preventative like Credelio, like NexGard, any other ones?
Simparica's
Erica.
in there too. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer is so clear. You can have a call with Dutch, establish VCPR, get a preventative, not get screwworm. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's
I
actually
know.
that
Yeah.
easy.
We have the answer. That's part of why I'm like, oh, we got to talk about this, is because we have a way for pet parents to protect their pets. And also, if you're in one of these counties where screwworm has been detected, and where this fly can travel, it can travel miles, about like 6 miles in a day. And so if you're in an area or a surrounding county in Zavala, LaSalle, and Gillespie, I would, or those surrounding areas, be really vigilant about your pets if they've got cuts. I wouldn't just let them be outside, because the risk of them being exposed, you want to definitely make sure they're on one of these preventatives. This is something that if it's treated, if pets are prevented, or if it's caught early, it's something that we can take care of.
Great. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining our second episode. We'll be back next Thursday, 8:15 a.m. Pacific, 11:15 Eastern. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Kate. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. See you guys next week.